If you want a foldable flip phone, it might surprise you to learn that you have 5 different manufacturers to choose from. That is, unless you live in the United States, in which case those options dwindle to 1. At least that's the way it was until today. The company that first resurrected the flip phone is back with a new one that's honestly better described as 2 phones in 1. And if that doesn't flip your script, they're also teasing a future foldable for the frugal. Today on Mr. Mobile, flip phones are the game, Motorola's the name, and this is your first look at the new RAZRs. The flagship model is the one that's launching today, so let's kick off with the RAZR Plus. And just for fun, let's start off with a complaint. Motorola says it wants to make this phone a fashion-forward icon. But to me, it doesn't seem like it wants to stand out. There's no chin, no assertive angles, none of the cheeky elements of prior models that cleverly invoked the image of a razor, with an O. When it's open and you see it alongside other flip phones, it's hard to pick out the Motorola. And when it's closed and locked, if you're just looking at the renders or even maybe at this video footage, it's just another pocket square. One that seems to have more in common with that big, odd RAZR 2022 for the China market. But, as I've said more times than I can count, it's way better in person. Pick up the RAZR Plus and you feel the attention to detail that hasn't really been there before. Comparing it with the Oppo and Samsung alternatives, the RAZR is more organic, less mechanical, like it was cast in a mold instead of assembled from disparate components. Also, Motorola's Pantone partnership continues with a special Viva Magenta edition, finished in soft faux leather on the backside and Gorilla Glass Victus on the front. There are also all Victus blue and black options. The phone is thin, it's solid, and the 3D curve to the sides produces a valley that makes it easy to flip open with a finger. But hold on! Opening it misses the phone's halo feature, a vast 3.6-inch cover display, so big that it flows around the primary cameras in the world's biggest hole punch design. Irresistible to the world's biggest doofus. But to quote Mr. Scott, it's not just the whales, it's the water. In other words, unlike other companies that fit big cover displays to their flip phones and then confine you to a handful of widgets, Motorola gives you everything. There's still glanceable stuff like weather, news, calendar, music, even a few custom games. But on top of that, you have the option to open any app you want. Just like a parallel universe, all possibilities that can happen do happen. Out here on the cover screen. Type replies with a full keyboard. Watch YouTube videos. You can even use the app switcher. You decide whether to lock the phone when you close it or continue the app you're using on the cover screen. And if the cameras are in your way, a press and hold on the gesture zone will shrink it down. The sum of all this capability is that instead of what feels like a smartwatch bolted to the front of the phone, it feels like a separate little extra phone. Motorola says that everyone's a content creator now, and while that's terrifying, to serve that creative consumer, the RAZR Plus has a positionable hinge, so it can be its own tripod. That huge cover display makes it much easier to see what you're actually shooting, and crucially, not just in the camera app either. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, any app that invokes the camera can throw a viewfinder up on the cover display. Assuming the cameras are any good, that could make the RAZR Plus the best phone for creators, influencers, and other war criminals. Moving inside the device, Motorola's learned an important lesson from prior RAZRs. It's tough to attract early adopters with mid-range specs. So, there's a lot of capability included. Sticking with the cameras for a second, horizon lock stabilization. There's a new feature called Photo Booth for fun selfies, and it is fun. And there's 4K video support on the selfie camera, which is rarer than it should be.
We like that.
On the way to more specs, we'll talk inner display. This is 5 layers of plastics and 1 layer of ultra-thin glass topped off by a factory screen protector and bent into a teardrop shape that lets the phone fold flat, resulting in a much subtler crease. Now that's NBD for markets where Oppo, Vivo, and Huawei phones are sold, but it's huge for American buyers, who up till now have just had to deal with the Samsung trench, or Motorola's prior multi-crease situation. The display itself is a veritable alphabet soup of specs, capped off by one of the fastest refresh rates available. Heck, even the cover screen is speedy. There's some staying power in this package too, at least on the page. This is the first foldable I've ever seen with a dust resistance rating to go with its water repellents. IP52 is on the weak side for water, but Motorola has also applied its usual nano coating on the internal components, so I'm not worried about water damage here. And even though the processor isn't the newest around, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 has proven itself time after time, in phone after phone, as powerful and efficient. It's actually the same silicon running Samsung's Galaxy Flip 4, whose endurance over the past year has been at least fair. With a similarly sized battery powering things, well, the RAZR Plus could go either way. It really depends on how often you end up using the power-efficient front screen versus the big main one. When it does come time to recharge, there's finally, mercifully, a wireless option to do so, albeit limited to 5 watts. Oh, and on the subject of wireless features, this phone is ready for. That's the DeX-like desktop emulation I demonstrated on the last RAZR, except here it's wireless only, since the wired version apparently needs HDCP, which would have required a larger USB port, which apparently was a no-go. I'll admit it, I'm predisposed to like Motorola phones. I carried the first 2 RAZRs for years, all the Moto X's before that. It goes all the way back to my Nextel days. And make no mistake, there are little quibbles I'm already annoyed about, like the hinge not providing as much friction as Samsung's not folding us flat on these pre-production devices I've been using. But I haven't seen anything yet to change my view that this, seems like a pretty compelling package. Especially if Motorola can live up to its Android support promises. Even the price point sounds reasonable for a phone that's actually changing what you can do with a foldable, instead of just aping whatever Samsung's doing. The RAZR Plus will cost $999.99 when pre-sales open on June 16th. I'll leave carrier and retail availability in the description. Now, if you're clamshell curious, but a penny shy of a comma is still too rich for your blood, you may want to wait a few months for the minus. That is, the RAZR without the Plus, which has even less in common with sharp razor-like objects, so I wish they'd have called it the Moto G Flip or something, but anyway, Motorola smartly reused components, like the hinge, the chassis, and main display from the Plus, while clearly not reusing the cover display. That was swapped out for a tiny 1.5-inch POLED just for the essentials, but Motorola was smart about the reclaimed space, building in a bigger 4,200 mAh battery that gives it the 3rd largest power pack on a flip phone, I think, behind Vivo and Oppo. Other stuff takes a step down too, the processor, storage, almost certainly the camera performance. But depending on how it's priced, this might end up being the more important device of the day because of its potential to become the gateway drug to flip phones. You'll call me crazy for saying it, but what if this was the first pseudo-durable foldable? When it's closed, the display is protected, and that all-pleather exterior will take a beating a hell of a lot better than glass. It's also got that same IP52 rating and nano coating as the Plus, so it's dust and water rated. They'll probably market it as a kind of digital detox device, something you can close when you don't want to be distracted. Feel some JOMO. JOMO. We're learning all kinds of new words as we market to Gen Z.
Oh, joy of missing out. Yeah, I wrote it down too.
Just close your phone.
Like, what?
Just gotta close your phone, buddy. I don't know. This seems equally as likely to be a thing your hard-charging dad buys because he misses his flip phone, and this one seems like it would be tough to break. Am I crazy? High on Nextel nostalgia once again? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Motorola wouldn't tell us a launch date or a price for the lower-end RAZR, except to say that it will be meaningfully cheaper than the Plus. And if that translates to $800 or even $700, these two phones taken together say to me that 2023 could well be the year the RAZR came back. But like for real this time. This video was produced following 2 hands-on sessions in Chicago and New York City with pre-production RAZR and RAZR Plus samples provided by Motorola, which also provided business class travel and lodging for my time in Chicago. You should also know that I provided Motorola with some first impressions of my time with the devices in exchange for an early look, but as is my standing policy, the manufacturer did not review, approve, or even see this script or any part of this video ahead of release, and it provided no compensation in exchange for its production. Hey, my idea for the RAZR Plus review is kind of weird and I think a little fun, so if you don't want to miss it, please subscribe to The Mr. Mobile on YouTube, share this video if you enjoyed it, follow me at the same handle on Instagram and on Twitter at Captain2Phones. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.